Kayla, and in today's video, I'm going to be answering a couple of questions about blindness that I stole from another video. This video is on the channel called Jubilee, and the video is called Do All Blind People Think the Same?, which is part of their Spectrum series where they get a handful of people who belong to the same community and ask them all the same questions so you can really hear the range of responses and how, every person within a community are individuals. And like we always say, blindness is a spectrum and we are all different. I really enjoyed watching this video. I think there were about 6 different blind people, 3 of whom are blind YouTubers that I watch. Molly Burke, Lucy Edwards, and James Rath, who are all great, so it was cool to see them on there. And I just liked the video so much, I felt kind of inspired, and I was like, I want to answer these same questions to just add my voice to the mix of answers. And I thought it would be cool to turn it into like a new blind YouTuber tag and have other blind YouTubers answer these same questions to add even more voices and perspectives and opinions to the mix. I've never tried to start a tag on YouTube before, so not sure how exactly this is gonna go, but we'll see. So if you want to answer these questions on your own channel, go for it. Also, again, just mentioning, these are not my questions. I didn't come up with these. I will link the original video in the description below and in the cards. Just want to make sure I'm giving full credit to them. So the format of these questions, I guess they are more of a statement, and they are answered with either strongly disagree, disagree, somewhat agree, agree, and strongly agree. Okay, the first question is, being blind has enhanced my other senses? And I would say agree. I definitely think since I can't see and I am missing one of the 5 senses, arguably one of the most important ones, my other senses have to pick up the slack and kind of fill in those gaps for me. And so I do think that my other senses are enhanced. I think of it kind of like a skill, like how you kind of practice at a skill or work at a skill and you enhance that skill. That's kind of what I feel like my other senses are. I don't feel like I have biologically heightened other senses. I think some people have this misconception that we have this supersonic hearing or like a dog or something and we can hear something from a mile away. And it's not that what I hear is at a louder frequency, it's that I just pick up on the details and the subtleties to where it's more of a skill and I can get more information from what I'm hearing than most people who don't need to rely on that sense. And I think this is especially true for hearing and my sense of touch, because my hands are like my eyes. I feel everything. That's how I see, and I can really feel very subtle details and different textures and things like that. And I think the same goes for taste and smell. Those senses are enhanced too, even though they're not quite as useful, but I do still feel like I pick up a lot more details than most sighted people do. So a fun example that I will throw out there about my enhanced hearing is, so I love cereal. I typically have about 10 boxes of cereal in the pantry at a time. So I like variety. And so I typically know what I have, but I can't tell which box is which because I can't see them to know that. And if I pick up the box and shake it, I can usually tell which cereal it is by the sound it makes when I shake the box. So that's kind of a skill that, like I said, sighted people would never need to develop that skill, but it's useful for me. So that's just kind of like a fun fact about that. The next question is, I prefer to date fellow blind people. And I would say disagree. So full disclosure, I am married. My husband is sighted, so I'm not dating. But when I was dating, I did not prefer to date other blind people. But honestly, I was not immersed in the blind community at all. I don't think I even knew a single other blind person. So it's not like I really had a pool of blind people to date because I really didn't know anyone. So I may have felt different if I did know a blind person and have romantic feelings for them. But that just wasn't the case for me. I was raised in the sighted world. Sighted people were all I knew. So that was just kind of like the default of what type of partner I saw myself with. And honestly, I think I prefer having a sighted partner because it just makes life easier to have someone who can help with visual things or describe visual things and what they look like, or, someone who could drive. Not that I need a sighted partner. I don't need them to take care of me. I lived on my own for 6 years. I was perfectly fine. So I don't need a sighted husband to care for me. It just makes life a little easier. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having that preference. The next question is, I am less shallow about romantic partners. And I would say somewhat agree. I think this is a really interesting question because I think there's this misconception that since blind people can't see, that we can't be shallow or judgmental, and that is false. We can certainly be just as shallow and just as judgmental as the rest of the world. But I do say somewhat agree in that I am less shallow because I can't see what people look like. So I literally don't have the ability to look at someone and be shallow and be like, oh my gosh, they're ugly. Like, I cannot see what people look like. I don't know how big or small they are. I don't know what they're dressed like. I don't know if they have like tattoos or if they have like bad teeth or whatever it may be. Like, I can't see that. So I literally can't be shallow until somebody describes them to me, and then I can picture them in my head. And at that point, I can certainly be shallow or judgmental. But I do think I am less so than the general population just because, I can't make those calls on my own. And I even think back of like when I was in high school and I had a little bit more vision. I still don't think I was very shallow because I couldn't really see what people looked like. I could kind of see certain things. I mainly judged guys on their hair because that's what I could see. I really liked guys that had like long, like swoopy hair because, that's what was cool in like the mid to late 2000s. So if a guy had nice hair, then I was like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. And sometimes my friend would be like, no, Kayla, he is so ugly. And I guess it was like something with like the facial features, I guess, but like I couldn't tell because I've never been able to see detailed enough to see really someone's facial features to know what's considered like conventionally attractive and what's not. So I think the kind of people who looked good to me didn't really look good to everyone because they could see more details than I could. So even though I wouldn't consider myself shallow, I do have preferences, just like anyone would have preferences, even blind people. And even if blind people can't see or can't picture what someone looks like, they can still have preferences on how things feel, like body type or facial hair, things like that are something that, even blind people can have preferences about. The next question is, unsolicited help makes things harder. And I think I would say disagree. I honestly really don't get a lot of unsolicited help. I think this is more of a problem for people who often travel independently with a white cane or a guide dog, and in busy areas to where a lot of people maybe assume that they're lost and they will grab them or grab their cane, which you should never ever do. Never grab anyone, especially a blind person, never grab their cane. So I think that unsolicited help can be very frustrating and even harmful in a lot of cases. But for me, I don't really travel independently with my cane very often, and when I do, it's not typically in a busy area, so I don't really have a lot of people that are trying to give me unsolicited help. In all actuality, I think I would like more offers for help. I think not enough people offer to help me. And I think this is because, of course, I don't look blind. And even with my cane, I think some people still don't realize that I can't see because, I wear glasses and I think I look like I'm looking around. So I guess that can be kind of confusing. So a lot of people do not offer to help me or have way too high expectations of me because they expect that I can see a lot more than I can, and sometimes that makes it more difficult. So I do kind of wish I got more offers for help. Sometimes though I do get unsolicited help for like just really small things or kind of dumb things, but I would say that is more just annoying and kind of like patronizing rather than it makes things harder. The next question is, the city I live in is easily accessible for me. And I think I would say somewhat agree. So before I get into this, you may be thinking, well, what city do you live in? And I'm not telling you. I get people asking me where I live pretty often. I do not want to tell the internet where I live, sorry. But I will say I live in the United States and I live in a suburb of a pretty big city. So the reason I say my city is somewhat accessible is because we have Uber and Lyft. And so that makes my life 100 times easier to have those services pretty readily available. And since I do live in a suburb as opposed to a more rural area where things are spread out, most things are pretty close. I can take an Uber or a Lyft to the doctor, the grocery store, or wherever, and most things are, a reasonable distance away. Now, I only say it's somewhat accessible because it is not a walkable city, and the public transportation here is essentially non-existent. There's like a couple of bus lines and a couple of bus stops, but the bus stops are nowhere near where I live, nor do the bus routes really go to the places that I need to go. And other than that, I'm not really sure what exactly makes a city accessible. I'm not sure if there's something that I'm missing. I feel like transportation and like walkability is the main thing. So let me know down in the comments below what other types of things make a city accessible or inaccessible. The next question is, I am offended when blind is used as one of my descriptive characteristics. And I would say disagree. I don't find the word blind offensive. I am blind. That's just a fact. It's not offensive. Like I always say, just call a spade, call it what it is. I'm blind. That's just the word for it. So yeah, I don't think saying that I'm blind is offensive. In fact, it's more, I wouldn't say offensive, but it's more bothersome when people actively avoid saying the word blind, like it's a bad word or like they're uncomfortable with it. That is way more bothersome than someone just saying that I'm blind. And on the same note, I feel the same way about the word disability. When people actively try to avoid it like it's a bad word or like it's uncomfortable to say, and they say things like differently abled or special needs. I really do not like those terms. And in fact, I made a video quite a while ago talking about this same topic and just language surrounding disability. I will link that below for you guys to check out. Interestingly, it is, I think, the very least viewed video on my entire channel, which I think is strange because I think it's a really good video. So yeah, it needs some more love. So check that one out. I think the only case where someone using blind as one of my descriptive characteristics would be offensive is if they said it in a very negative way. Like if they said something like, well, you can't do that, you're blind. But in this case, it's not the word blind that's offensive, it's just the context of their statement that's offensive. Just like if someone said, well, you can't do that, you're a woman. It's like the word woman isn't offensive, it's, their negative attitude and the way that they're saying it in a very negative way, that's what's offensive, not the word itself. The next question is, being blind has affected my mental health. And I would say agree. And I really like this question. I think this is a very important topic. As a mental health professional, I am a huge proponent of, talking about mental health. But I am going to keep this segment on this video pretty short because I do plan on making an entire video on how blindness has affected my mental health. It needs its whole own video, so be on the lookout for that in the near future. But for this video, briefly, I will say that I have experienced depression, and it has more so not been necessarily because of blindness itself, of being depressed about literally not being able to see, but more how society has treated me because of it. I've felt very lonely and isolated and rejected in my life. I haven't had a lot of friends, and really looking for employment and experiencing so much rejection and discrimination from employers that thought I was incompetent or incapable, and I just felt so stuck and limited in what jobs I could do. Really impacted my mental health. I also have pretty significant anxiety, and I do think if I wasn't blind, that I would still probably be a very anxious person. I think it is just part of my personality and my temperament, but I do think my blindness kind of exacerbates that. I am constantly anxious about what I can't see, and a lot of it has to do with safety concerns because I can't see my surroundings. So I'm very anxious of what if someone is stalking me or following me, or what if my Uber driver kidnaps me and, I don't even know because I can't see where we're going. Or when I did live alone, I was very anxious that someone would break into my apartment and I wouldn't be able to see them to see who it was or if they had a weapon. And it was just something I was constantly very anxious about. I'm also anxious about just minor things of always being worried about what ifs. What if I get into the wrong car? What if I go somewhere and I get lost and there's no one to ask for directions? What if I go to this class and they give out printed handouts of important information that I can't read, and then I'm confused the entire time? It's just a world of what ifs. I feel like I'm constantly on guard and that I have to predict the future and think of every scenario of all of the what ifs and have a plan for everything. And it's exhausting. The next question is, I have experienced discrimination, and I would say agree. I kind of mentioned this just a second ago, but I have experienced discrimination in looking for employment, with employers just not taking me seriously, not giving me a chance at all, assuming that I'm incompetent or incapable, not wanting to provide me with accommodations. And it's so extremely hurtful. And I did a little mini series on my channel about being blind and looking for a job and the discrimination that I faced, so I will link those videos. But I will say that in the employment sector is really the only place where I have experienced discrimination, and I don't think that I have experienced that in any other type of capacity. And the last question is, if I could regain my sight with a cure, I would want to. And I would say somewhat agree. I would like to be able to see. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't want to be able to see, because I do. However, it is not something that I am holding out hope for. I have fully accepted that there will probably never be a cure in my lifetime, and that I will never not be blind, and I am perfectly okay with that. Thinking about being cured is something that I hardly ever think about. It's definitely not something that I am holding my breath for. But if there so happened to be a cure, then, I would probably want that. I actually talked about this in a video a very long time ago, when I first started my channel, so it is quite a throwback, but I will link that video where I go kind of more into detail on my thoughts on this matter. I also have a pretty severe medical phobia, and so if this cure involved some type of surgery where there was cutting or needles in my eye or around my eye, I probably would not want that. I joke around that one day they're going to cure blindness and I'm going to be the only blind person left because I'm going to be too scared to get the surgery. I know that's not completely true because there are blind people who would choose to not get a cure. So I know I wouldn't really be the only one left. So this cure would probably need to be like a pill or something. I mean, I really don't even like taking pills. Maybe it could be like a gummy. Okay, so that's all of the questions. I guess the only thing left to do is to tag some people to do this. So I'm going to tag Casey from How Casey Sees It, Carrie from Live Accessible, and Cindy from Seeing Blind. So you guys answer these questions. Also, if I didn't tag you, you can definitely answer these questions. Like, I don't own these, so if you want to make a video and answer these questions, please go for it. I feel like if this tag doesn't catch on, I will be slightly embarrassed for trying to start one and it not working. So by all means, if you want to answer these questions, please go for it. But I hope you guys liked this video. Again, don't forget to check out the original one from the channel Jubilee that I will have linked. And I will see you guys next time.